Okay, for this exercise, assignment 8, we're going to be looking at creating a solid model. And from that solid model, we're going to be creating a layout sheet with all the views in order to actually manufacture this part. So it's going to have dimensions, top view, front view, right side view, isometric view, and a couple of cross sections. So this is all done fairly automatically from AutoCAD. So we're going to look at how to actually draw this part. Okay, if we look at this part up a little bit closer here, we can see this is what it looks like. It has a base on it with this little slot in here. It has a hole in the middle that goes through the top. It has a couple supports on the side that you can see here. There's one on either side. It has this rounded base here on the top and an opposite rounded base on the top, so you can kind of see all that. So with that said, we're going to go into AutoCAD into a new drawing, and I'm going to draw this up for you and then show you how to take your model and make 2D or two-dimensional drawings from that. So that's what we're going to do. So first thing is I'm going to go in here. I'm in my top viewport here. Before I go too far, I'm going to switch my viewports to multiple viewports. For some reason or other, something looks a little messed up. Hold on a second. Okay, we're missing these up here in the corner. Okay, so I have this fixed now. So we have our top view, our front view, our right hand side view, and in this one here we'll set this up for our southeast isometric, and we should be all set to start drawing in our top view. So I'm going to switch to a single view. The first thing we're going to do is work on the base of this, and you can see that the base, this base right here, is square. It's 4 by 4 square. It has this slot in the middle, okay, which has some dimensions here and also here on heights and widths here. So we'll go ahead and do that first. So the first thing I'm going to do is just start out with a polyline. Before I get too far, I want to turn on my solid history. Make sure that we turn that on first thing. That's one thing that you tend to forget. I think it should be on by default, but it's not. Anyway, so we'll just start drawing. Okay, I'm going to turn on ortho here, and we're going to go 4 by 4 by 4 and close. So we have a 4 by 4 square, and then we're going to extrude this square, and it's an inch. Okay, so at this point here we should be able to look at this in 3D. Okay, so this is our front view. Okay, so we can see our front view here. I'll change from wireframe into shaded with edges, and we'll start offsetting for the slot that goes through this thing. So I'm going to just draw in 3D here. So I'm going to draw a line straight up like this and a line straight over like that, and I'll use offsets to offset these up. So 0.3 is our first one, so we'll offset that up. Now notice that because I'm in 3D view, it wants to offset this towards the back because we drew this in our top viewport. So that's the last user coordinate system that we're in, so we need to switch over to multiple viewports for a second and then get in the viewport that we want to offset in. Okay, so we're in our front viewport now. Up here we can see here's our isometric here that we were looking at before. So over here we're going to use the offset command 0.3, and we'll pick the side to offset like that, so you can see that happening up here. We can see that the slot is using the center, and it's 1.2 at the bottom and 1.8 at the top of the slot. So we're going to use offset to offset this line over 2 inches, so we have the center, and then we're going to offset it to 0.6, okay, like this. and we're also going to offset it. Let's see, it's going to be 0.9, I believe. So we'll do 0.9 like that. And we'll zoom up to this. Do some trimming. And we're going to trim all this stuff here. Till we have the slot. Okay, so we have the slot now. I can erase these construction lines. Don't need them anymore. Up here, we can see that up here, so we can go back to shaded with edges. And then I should be able to use press pull to actually pick that face right here. And you can see how it drags it out. I could have extruded it, but it's just as easy to use press pull. Once you have a shape on there, you can drag that right through and it will cut that slot out. So there's our first piece done. Okay, so the second part of this is we're going to add a base to this, and let's see, we're going to come up here to our top view, and we're going to do wireframe again so we can get to see that again. And so we're going to just continue to build this thing up. So our next portion of this is to put some more construction lines on. Whoops. Come over here and get this up like this. So I'm going to draw a line from the midpoint right here straight across like this. And I'll draw a line from the midpoint straight across like this, so that I have a couple construction lines on there. We can see that this slot, okay, or not slot, but this plate right here, okay, and this plate right here are rounded, and we're looking at the radii on here for our distance. So we know the radius of this is 1.1. So that means from the center over to here is 1.1. So we're going to end up putting that on here like that. And we can see that the center mark for this half circle is 2.3 from the center over. So that's what we're going to do next here. So we'll use the offset command and we'll do 2.3 and pick this and offset it. And then we're going to offset the other one, 1.1. So we'll pick that and do that, pick that and do that. We'll put our circle in here, right here. 1.1 is the radius. Okay, we should be able to go ahead now and trim this stuff off. Whoops. So we'll pick that first as a cutting edge. We'll pick this as a cutting edge and trim that off. We can get rid of this line now. That really doesn't need to be in there. We can mirror this from there over to there. Extend this line and this line over to meet that. And I'm not going to erase my center lines just yet because I might need those as well. So one thing that's going on, if you notice here that the plate itself actually sets up from the base. So we have a 4x4 base that goes up, and we'll worry about these fillets at the very end. I wouldn't worry about those right now. We'll just draw a square base that comes up, and then this base is only 0.3. It's the same thickness as the rest of these. You can see 0.3, 0.3, 0.3. Everything's consistent here. So and you can see this dimension's 0.6, so that means they're split in half, 0.3. So with that said, this portion in the middle I want to extend up. So I actually want I'm going to move these pieces up 0.3, and we'll see how that goes. So I'm going to just use this and use the move command in the viewport that I want to move them. I'll come up here and pick them in this view. I lost my cursor, so hold on, we'll come back over here. Alright, so we'll pick these lines, hit enter, come over here, and we're going to pick and drag up 0.3. Okay, so that should move that up by 0.3. This is our construction line on the base here. So so with that done, we have this in correct position now. So I also need to put that little bit of a base in there. So we could do it a number of different ways. Probably the easiest way is to just draw a line or a polyline from here up to here, over to there, down, oops, undo, down to there, and close it off. Okay, so you can see that this is our base for that. It needs to go against this face right here. So I'm going to use the move tool and move it from that endpoint to that endpoint right here. I'm going to zoom up to it. Okay, so you can kind of see where that's going to go. Okay, and that needs to extend back 2.2 because this radius is 1. So we'll just use the extrude command, and we can pick this and extrude this back this way 2.2. Oops, it went forward for some reason or other. So we can use press pull on it too if we want. .2. I have no idea why it's going forward. Oh, because Y is going away from me, that's why. Okay, so let's extrude it one more time. This time, if it's not working in the positive direction, we'll say minus 2.2, and there we go. All right. So that puts that little bit of a base on there for us. And then this shape up here, we can convert that into a polyline and extrude that up. So I'll use P-edit, and I'll pick this, turn it into a polyline, hit J for join. We'll pick this line, and this arc. Okay, and that's now a polyline that we can now extrude up 0.3. All right. So now we have our little base plate done. So we can see that looks like that. So at this point here, I would like to take all three of these and join them together at this point. So we can use the union command. So we can come over here and do a solid union, and we'll pick this one, and this one. And so now they're all one piece at this point. Okay. So the next part that we have to do on here is we're up at this part right here. You can see here we have our base on, and we'll come back and do these little rounds after. But for right now, what I want to focus on is this box in the middle. And if we look at the side view, we can see that that box is actually tapered. So it tapers outward like that. So we need to actually draw this in our side view like this. Okay, so we can see that the top is 2.9 and the bottom is 2.2. Okay, across here, 2.9 across there. So basically over here in our side view, we need to put in some construction lines and start working on this. So from the base right here up to the top is 3 inches. So that's what we need to do first here, is offset this line up 3 inches. So we can use offset 3, and that gives us that point right up here. Okay, and then I'm going to Well, let's see. What do we want to do here, actually? I'm going to erase these construction lines for a second and erase this construction line, because that construction line was from the center and I want it on this face right here. I want a line going straight up like this and across here. So that's what I'm going to do here is in this view here I'm going to say line, and to be looking at this correctly we should be looking at it kind of like this. Okay, so if you will, we're looking at it like this here, and if we look at our problem here we can see we're looking at this side here and we're going to be putting in this shape. Okay, so with that said, let's see, we're going to put a center line in here, so I'm going to do line, and I'll pick up here endpoint like that. Okay, so that puts that line across there, and then I want to go from center to center, I guess, up here. So let's do that. Okay, so we have our centers on here. Okay, so we need a center line on here going from this intersection straight up to that perpendicular point. And the upper portion of this here, if we're looking at this, is 2.9 in the upper portion. And then we're going to push this shape back and we're going to extrude it the depth, because we're looking at it from this side over here. We're extruding this back, and it's going to be 2.8 plus 0.3 and 0.3, so it would be 3.4. So that's what we're going to do, is create this shape. So up here in our viewport up here, we're going to, or actually down here, we'll use the offset command, and we should half of 2.9 is 1.45, so we're going to do an offset of 1.45 and pick this and offset that and offset that. Then up here, that gives us our intersections, okay, right there to that endpoint, down to that endpoint, and from there down to that endpoint. And now you can see the shape here. We can see it. I can erase these. Okay, trim this stuff up. So we're going to trim this stuff here, like so. And erase this middle one. And I'm going to use P-Edit to edit this polyline here. We're going to turn it into one, say J for join. Pick those two. Okay, so now we have a polyline that is these three lines. The last line down bottom, yeah, I think it's there, so we can actually hit J for join and pick that line as well. So now we have a closed polyline, and now we can use extrude, and we're going to extrude this back. Okay, we can see this up here. It should be 3.4. Okay, so now you can see here that that shape is a little bit off center. It needs to be centered on that bottom plate. So we can use the move tool and move it from its midpoint to the other midpoint, and that positions it nice and correctly for us there, like so. Okay, so then we have to carve out this middle portion. Okay, so to carve out the middle portion, we're going to come to our front viewport, and I would suggest erasing some of the construction lines if you have them, because they do tend to get in the way. So in our front viewport, I'm going to use the line command and come over here and snap to this edge. Now you don't want to snap to this bottom portion because this is going at an angle. So what I want to do is just come back here and draw that in like so. Okay, just put in a construction line like that. I can use the offset command of 3.4 to offset that to the other side, like so. Then I can draw in another line going across the top, okay, like that. Okay, so we have this line here. So we're going to offset that down 0.3. Okay, offset these over 0.3 and over 0.3. And we'll do some trimming now. We'll trim out this, this, and we'll erase those, okay, like that. So then the last thing we have here is this height in here. So basically we need to offset this down so that we have the line that's going across here. So we can see that here. Okay, so what's our height of the inside is 2.7. Okay, we can see that here in the cross section. So we can come over here now and use our offset command of 2.7 and offset that down like that. And then we should be able to trim that again. We can trim these lines off. Okay, like that. We can erase these construction lines, don't need those anymore. So now over here you can see we have this box. Okay, you can see the box and it's not in the same plane. You can see how it's not going like that, but all we have to do is punch it through and subtract it. So now that we have our rectangle created in here, whoops, wrong viewport, we can see that it's there. I got another construction line there I got to get rid of. And now I can go ahead and use the region command on this. I could use pedit. Doesn't really matter in this case here. So that's now a region, and now we should be able to go ahead and extrude this through like so. And we're going to use subtract now to subtract out that region. And there we go. There's our part there. So next up on the agenda is we need to put the top on this, so we can see we have still two solids. We don't have to join everything together at this point, but our next thing that we're going to tackle is going to be this upper portion here. Okay, so if we look at that, you can see it basically has an arc that comes out here, and the arc itself is 1.7 the radius, so that's half. So basically we would offset this 1.7 on either side, and then we should be able to go ahead and put in the radius for this. You can see the radius is right in here. Alright, so let's go ahead and do that. So we'll come back to here and we're going to put on some construction lines. So in our top viewport, I'm going to use the line command and come up here and basically go from the midpoint backward like this, and I can extend that out a little bit. Let's see, I'll extend that out, so something like that. I also need a line going this way because I need to find out how long this is. So if we look on our plan here, we can see that that is 6.3, okay, in length. So we want to basically have a line going half of that on either side. So I'm going to go ahead with my line command and again draw from the midpoint across like that. Okay, and I'm going to extend that out just a little bit so that I have grips to grab onto. So then we'll offset that. So we're going to it should be 3.15, I believe. So offset 3.15, and we'll go ahead and offset that and offset that. So that gives us the outer edge of our, that will give us our outer edge of the plate that we're drawing. Okay, and if we offset this in, because this is the quadrant, if we offset that in the radius of 1.7, that'll give us our center point. So we're gonna go ahead and offset that 1.7. So we'll offset that in, offset this one in like so. You can see those occur right on top edge of this, so that's actually good. And then we'll offset that 1.7, this line, to give us our width like this. Okay, and then I should be able to draw my circle in here from either that midpoint or that intersection. Okay, it doesn't matter, it shouldn't matter which. Okay, so we'll go ahead and put that in like, whoops, we'll do that again. And our radius is 1.7. Okay, so I should be able to go and trim this sort of stuff off. Whoops. Where is my circle over here? I don't see it. If you don't see an object in this view when you draw it, then chances are you've drawn it wrong. And you can see here, when I snapped, we snapped to the midpoint, which was actually the midpoint way down here. So it put that circle down here. So this is why it's important a lot of times to either be working in the 3D view or to be paying attention to it. So it's a good thing that we actually saw that mistake happen. So what we can do here to get it in the right position is do circle again, and then come over here and grab that, either that midpoint, or in this case here it wants to pick a perpendicular point, and then we should be able to go ahead and put in the radius of 1.7. Then we can go and trim this stuff off. So we should be able to trim that circle off. Okay, like that. We can erase this portion here. We can erase that line there. Oops. Trim. So we'll pick that. Trim those off. Okay, erase that, and I need those center lines on there for the bolt head, so I'm going to leave those alone. And I'll go ahead and mirror this from there down to there. Okay, and again, we can either trim this up or use the grips to extend them back. Either way should work, but I'll use trim. It should be more reliable. Trim. Okay, there we go. Alright, and so we have that done now. Now that we have this done, let's convert these objects into a region. So we'll use the region command, and I'll pick this first arc, and I'll pick that line, pick this arc, pick this line, and hit enter. We should have a region at that point. And this is actually going down. This surface here is shared by the top. If you look at this isometric, you can see that here. So we're on this top plane, so we need to extend it down and union the top of this to the other part. So with that said, we're going to just go ahead and extrude this down, and it should be 0.3, and it went the wrong way, so let's try it again. Extrude, and I'm going to say -0.3. There we go. So now I have these all set, and I can do a union on this. So I'll union this. Oops, I'll union this 3D solid to this 3D solid, and that all becomes one. And you can see how that absorbed that volume right here on the side. You can see how that, if I do an undo, you can look at that a little closer, see how that line is there, indicating that there's a solid on top of the other solid. And when we redo that, when we union that, you can see how that is blended in. So that's how you know that the union's actually been created. Then we have the hole in the nut. Okay, the nut itself from edge to edge is 1.7. The hole itself has a radius of 0.56. So I'm going to put the circle on first up top here. So I'll use circle, and we'll come over here and get that intersection and put in a radius of 0.56. Okay. With the circle there now, I should be able to use the polygon command, and it's a 6-sided polygon, and we'll pick the center of it right here, and we'll use inscribed and give it a radius of 1.7. Okay, that's wrong, so we should have used actually that was the diameter, 1.7, so it should be half of that, so it would be 1.7 divided by 2. So we'll go ahead and do that. So we'll say polygon again, 6-sided, and center. Pick one more time here, and we'll do inscribed again, and this time it'll be we're going to say cal and do 1.7 divided by 2. It's 0.85, and there's our beginning of our nut. Okay, so our nut is how high? It is, well, it doesn't say, but I believe it's 0.5. So we're going to extrude this up. Polyline 0.5. Okay, and then we're going to take this circle and extrude that. Oh, I don't know, let's go with 10. Doesn't really matter how much we extrude that, because what I need that to do is punch down through. You can see how tall I made it. We just want to move it and punch it down through the bottom so that it goes through the top and through the bottom like this. Okay, and then we should be able to subtract this out, but before we do that, we have to make sure that the top is union to the bottom, and you can see right now it's not. When I come up here, I can pick the bottom and I can pick the top separately from each other, and that's indicative of the fact that they're not union together. So we're going to union first, so I'll pick this one first, pick this one second, and hit enter, and now they should be a union. Okay, keep losing my cursor up in that viewport here, I'm not sure why. Losing my cursor all over the place. That's strange. Alright, I got it down here. Okay, so I'm going to use the subtract command now, so I'll pick the whole solid body and hit enter, and then I'll pick this cylinder and hit enter, and that gives us our hole. Now it didn't give us our hole on our nut because the nut wasn't union, so let me back up one step here, and we'll come back in here and union this to the nut. Okay, so now when we go ahead and subtract that this time, we can pick this, and there you go. So the last thing we have to do in creating the model is to put on the ribs on the side. So I can go ahead and erase that construction line and that other construction line. Okay, and now I should be able to go ahead and put the ribs on. So in our front view, I'm going to just use a polyline, and I'm going to come up here and I'm going to grab the midpoint of that. I'm going to come up here and grab the midpoint of that, come down and grab the midpoint of that, and close this off. Okay, so that puts a polyline right there, dead center where it's supposed to be, and the offset or the thickness of this object is supposed to be 0.3. So basically, if we extrude it 0.3, we're going to have to move it back 0.15. So I'll go ahead and do that. We'll do an extrude on this, and we're going to extrude it 0.3, so you can see here how it's moved to this front. So I'm going to use the move tool, and I'm going to just push it back 0.15. Okay, so that should be dead centered now. Don't worry about this little part down here. That's how it's supposed to look. And we'll go ahead and mirror this solid from the center straight up like that, and that gives us that side. Okay, so with that done, we can go ahead and union. So we'll pick that, and pick that, and now we have one solid union, and this is done. So we should be able to go up here and hit save, and then we will move on to making our 2D representation of this 3D part next.